It was the last day of June, the final 24 hours of Pride Month, a month that has seen declines in celebrations and parades like we haven't seen in years, and yet it collapsed even more. For the Supreme Court ruled against having boys play in girls' sports, whatever you might think of that sort of thing, and however you might label it. Today, we've got an expert to tell us what's going on, and will Pride continue to collapse in 2027? Hello, folks. Welcome aboard. It's a great day. It's a wonderful day, and happy July. Independence Day is just around the corner for those of us in America, and I say go USA and go the world as well. We want everybody to soar. Folks, as we dive in, click the like button, share, subscribe, and let's talk about the collapse of Pride. The Supreme Court has spoken. It upholds state bans. This is the way it's being presented by the media. State bans on, I'm going to say it this way, anatomically male bodies in girls' sports. How's that for a way to get around the YouTube rules, eh? We've got it says, what a great way to end the last Gay Pride Month in 10 years. This is from Langman, at Langman Vince, I'm sure. And yeah, the ruling has just happened. This is also, I think, perhaps one of the least impressive Pride months, at least for those who support the month, in many, many years, perhaps more than a decade. New York, NBC New York is reporting this, Channel 4, we will not be erased. That's not really the claim of victors, I would say. We will not be erased. New York City parades close out Pride Month amid efforts to roll back rights. Now, I don't think that any rights are being taken away, but that's the way it's being presented. So this month's parades and festivals around the U.S. have unfolded as President Donald Trump works to roll back the trans rights and diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. I didn't realize that DEI was a right, but okay, well, whatever. The Associated Press writing that, so you can understand where it comes from. But I want to put this forth to everybody as we talk about the Supreme Court and the ruling now and what it means and where Pride may have gone too far in terms of winning over the public. This is the Google trends. This is all of the Google searches for the word Pride over the past, let's see, we've got about 11 years. So it goes back a long, long time. And we can all see that there was a rise around 2015. There was a rise in the interest of Pride, and it continued to go up and go up. The pandemic brought it back down, but then it was back up again. And for the first time since they've been measuring this outside of the pandemic, starting in 2024, so preceding the Orange Man returning to the White House, 2024, 2025, and now 2026, we've seen waning interest in Pride. And I just wonder, as we look at this ruling from the Supreme Court, Jennifer, I wonder if it's the plus part that has really decimated this movement. I'm not going to weigh in ethically or anything like that, religiously, none of that. I'm going to stay away from it. But I wonder if the plus part, because I think that has an effect on the girls' sports aspect, I wonder if that is what has caused average people to say, I can't support what this is. I can't support this movement anymore because I can't support having a giant wrestler man taking on, my daughter and winning every single championship. We've seen it in swimming. We've seen it in gymnastics. We've seen it in boxing. We've seen it in wrestling. I mean, it's so many things. And you've got it too. I think it's coming up in the major sports like basketball as well. So what are your thoughts on the ruling for the Supreme Court, as well as what this has done to the movement that is Pride?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the Supreme Court ruling, which essentially was that 27 states with laws protecting women's sports, those laws are constitutional. They can continue. They're not a violation of Title IX. Those laws can continue. The 23 states that don't have laws, they can keep doing what they're doing. So we still have a fight on our hands. I think you're right about Pride. I think that bump you saw in 2015, that's when gay marriage became the law of the land. And I think the movement had done a really good job of getting folks behind it and offering that level of equality to gays and lesbians. I think that when the TQIA took hold, really the movement could have at that point said, we have equality, let's just celebrate. That's not what happened. The TQIA plus, as you indicated, took over. And this is where we start to see the insistence that, quote unquote, trans women are women and must have access to our sports and our private spaces, bathrooms, locker rooms, prisons, battered women's shelters. This is when we start to see drag queen story hour in elementary schools. Like, people don't want it. They don't want it. They're like, fine, get married. We love that. That's great. It's normalizing in society, but don't teach this stuff in school. Kids are not reading at grade level. They're not doing math at grade level. And yet there's all this stuff, ideological content in our schools as early as kindergarten. They don't want that. They don't want, secret transitioning of children, not telling the parents in schools. They don't want, it's just all gotten too much. And people are now going, it's enough. No more. I don't support this movement anymore. Why didn't they just take the win in 2015? That's the question. That was a huge, huge win. And now it's just gone crazy. And it's been taken over by the T, the Q, I don't know what I and A are, and whatever is held by plus.
Well, the plus is everything. That's the problem. The plus is everything. So the plus makes the entire thing amorphous. So
well, and the other issue is the queer. It's not even about, sexual preference. It's about gender identity, whatever that is. I think it's made up. It's about the queering of society. It's about, I don't know if you guys are paying attention to what happened with Scott Wiener over the weekend, being ejected from a Pride event, basically for being Jewish. It's just like, we've got to break down every possible norm in society. It has nothing to do with sexuality anymore, really. And I think people are tired of it. I think they also got really sick of the corporatization of it. People didn't want to go in Target and see tucking bathing suits for minors. They just didn't want it shoved down their throats. They're like, fine, do what you want. It's fine. All of it's fine. I support you. My kid is it's all good, but leave my minor child in elementary school alone.
Yeah. And what I would say is the plus is a huge problem because, and it would be with any organization, right? Like you could imagine that if there was if there's an organization for Catholics, if it was Catholic Plus, well, I don't know what that is anymore. It's because that's everything else. So if they have this and that's suddenly Pride, then what you're doing is you're forcing people who might have been amenable in the past to saying, well, I'm in support of gay rights or I'm in support of gay marriage. Now in order to accept Pride and to celebrate it, they're being forced to say, well, yeah, this guy says that his son is a river otter. He believes he identifies as a river otter. Well, that's in the plus. Okay, we'll bring him on in. We'll do a parade on river otters. And it's just, it's far too much. And it's become, go ahead.
It's also a contradiction because in a sense, the T obliterates the gay rights that were fought for because, the T is saying, I'm a man who claims to be a woman. So I am a woman. And if you're a lesbian, you have to date me, even if I have I don't know what words we say on the show, even if I have male genitalia. So it sort of obliterates or erases homosexuality in addition to erasing women and women's rights. And that's why people are they've had enough. And yet, even though 80% of people agree, for instance, that women's sports should be for women, the people spouting the craziness have very significant positions in the culture, whether it's in media or at universities and academia, teachers and teachers unions. And so it feels like the minority position is the majority position and everybody else gets bullied into silence. But the 80% need to stand up and just say, we're done.
Yeah. And for full transparency, I just want to say I've always, and I don't always talk about my political beliefs, but I've always thought the government should just be completely uninvolved in marriage. Yeah. It should handle, civil unions or civil contracts, next of kin, that kind of thing, because kids are involved. But I've always thought that marriage is a specifically religious term. And so you're always going to have problems when the government tries to weigh in on what marriage is. But this is sort of separate to the issue because now this has morphed from that simple thing 10 years ago into, hey, my giant son needs to be able to fight your tiny daughter, in this high school sport, and he's going to dominate and be the champion. And we're going to pretend that that's fair and all that. We're going to ignore the reality of the situation, that he has a different skeletal structure, that is every single strand of DNA is creating a different muscular reality for him. And Carol, you've experienced this in a way that I think is very serious. You had been talking recently with me about your time in the military and how you were hearing that people who are biologically male, we used to call those men, Carol, that those guys were identifying in a different way because it provided a military advantage. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so I have actually a couple layers of experience with this. When I was in the military, I actually used to be the physical trainer, so I would run all the PT segments. And I can tell you for a fact that the standard for women and men are not the same at all.
Right.
Because if we were supposed to be treating this all equal, we would all be required to run 2 miles in under 16 minutes, right? And one of the things that was happening recently in the military that got overturned is that when there was the push to allow people to identify in this certain way, which also meant that they could identify in those fitness standards, men started to allow their beards to grow out because there's nothing in female dress and appearance that says that they have to shave. And so they started looking like hobos a little bit. And then because women have wider hips, when it came to the hip measurement, because there's always a hip measurement, men were allowed to be a little bit bigger. But the thing is that because the way that fat is distributed within the body, when men would get to the women hip size, they were very overweight. And one of my friends who was in one of the seminars where they were actually talking about this new change that was about to get rolled out before it was redacted backwards, is that there was actually a female lieutenant who stood up and said, I am not okay with this. This makes me uncomfortable. And they told the woman to be quiet and deal with it. And that is a common trend that happens within sports, that happens within communities, because when we stand up and we try to say something and say, this is not right and this is not fair, we're told to take it.
That's absolutely 100%. When we work with so many young athletes, high school and college age athletes across the country. We've got about 500 athletes on our little XXXY team, and every one of them has experienced exactly what you're talking about, Kara. They dare stand up for their own rights. And their own safety and their own protection and their own opportunity. And they're told to sit down, shut up, and just take it, be nice. I mean, think about that, telling a 15-year-old girl, that young woman, I thought we were raising our girls to be strong and to use their voice and stand up in their own defense. And yet this movement is completely seeking to erase girls and women. But today, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win. We still have work to do, but it's so nonsensical, this whole idea that some male who just, has this dream of being a woman, that he is one just because he says it is. It's so dumb. I can't believe I wake up every day and this is what I have to argue about. But it is where we are and we have to keep going. And Carol, you're 100% right. I see this every day with our young athletes and they're so brave for doing it anyway. Think about being a 14-year-old girl and having the courage to do that and be vilified in your own community and on your own team. I mean, I just want them to have a sense of community and know that we're all behind them.
Yeah, I think if we just redact or took away the ability to get into women's spaces when they make these choices, they wouldn't make those choices. That's what it comes down to.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and you say that you talk about men that dream of being women. I'm a little bit more cynical, and I think about the insidious side of this. Yeah, well, I'm not going to be nice for a minute. I think there are sheep in wolves' or wolves in sheep's clothing.
Oh, there's absolutely predators. Yeah,
they dream of being in the girls' locker room, and they have figured out there's a government pass to do so.
Yeah, these are the worst men among us. What's so ironic is the left talks all the time about toxic masculinity and men being toxic. And yet the minute he claims to be a woman and puts on a little lip gloss, it's come on in. Well, these actually are the most toxic men amongst us. I will say for the very young children who are being quote unquote transitioned, I think they're victims in this. Yeah. And I think that the predatory men are happy to hold those young children up as examples that this is sort of how you are at birth because it justifies and validates their less savory intentions.
And it takes advantage too. It takes advantage too of the prepubescent psychological inclination for role playing. So kids naturally role play in order to prepare. And in fact, all mammals do this. But kids, given the power of our brains, kids pretend to be all kinds of things. Sure. And then it's just so sinister that these predators come in. And part of this movement has been to come in and claim that the role playing of the child should be made into something concrete and part of their personality from the age of 3 or 4 or 5 years old. And then the kid is taught this thing that completely skews their vision for what reality is. And I think, of course, that's the ultimate goal anyway, is to decimate that there is objective truth or fact.
I think well said. No, well said. That's all.
Yeah. From a sociology standpoint, a lot of these children that are being made to go through this procedure are being paraded around as their parents as an accessory. And the truth of the matter is that if we can't sign up for the military, we can't drink and we can't drive at a certain age, I think that we shouldn't be doing these types of conversations. And one of the gaslighting things that they like to say is like, well, if we start sooner, then when they actually reach this phase, it will look better. I don't know if you've looked at modern medicine lately, but it's actually pretty advanced. You don't have to start younger to do this. And unfortunately, when I was a teacher and I watched a bunch of my kids go through this process, no judgment zone, I wasn't allowed to comment, but I can tell you for a fact, 90% of those kids have retransitioned back.
Yeah. Yeah. A child children have no idea who they are. I have 4 children. I can tell you they range in age from 9 to 25. The 20-year-olds, okay, fine. These young children, they pretend at all kinds of things. They have no idea, and I have a daughter who has some very kind of traditionally masculine characteristics. She's very aggressive on the soccer field. She's not a boy, she's a girl. It doesn't matter how you behave. We don't care how you behave, how you dress. None of that matters. It's biology. And these young children, when they are socially transitioned earlier, they get on this like moving walkway towards medicalization, and they are then put on puberty blockers, and then they are moved right to wrong sex hormones. Their fertility is potentially destroyed. Their sexual function is potentially destroyed. How can a 10-year-old consent to that? They don't even understand what that is. It is so grotesque what's being done to these children. And I think I've said for some time now, I do think the detransitioners, like the ones you describe, Caro, they're gonna be the ones that end this. And there was such a huge wave of transitioning that started in 2020 during COVID, when kids were isolated at home alone, they're going to all detransition. It might take some time. It might take 5 years or 10 years. It might take adulthood and wanting to have a child. Who knows what it will be? But they're just kids. So a lot of them are probably gay. And now we've destroyed their bodies. It's just the saddest thing. It breaks my heart.
So you have fought the monster that is corporate America. And what we've learned over the last few years is that a lot of this was funded through DEI, ESG initiatives, some of that money international, much of that money sort of hidden away. Can you talk about the beast that you took on and the efforts? Because we're an entertainment channel. We cover pop culture. We cover the entertainment companies like Disney, like Universal. And it seems to me that a lot of these companies, they were full in on creating a completely new culture. And maybe this decrease that we're seeing in the trend has collapsed that idea or that ideal. But talk about for a minute just how hard it was for you to come out and take some of the positions you did and face off with corporate America.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent just over 30 years in corporate America. I'm not going to get into, a ton of details about my personal experience inside, but I will tell you, I've sat on boards. I know how these organizations behave. It's a marketing strategy. They don't care about any of these issues. They care about making money. And I don't say that as a criticism. In fact, that's their fiduciary responsibility. That's their responsibility to the board and to their shareholders. And I've always said, when this is not a money-making strategy anymore, they'll walk away. That said, they still believe that it is a money-making strategy for the ones that continue it. They're also being held hostage by their younger employees who think, this venture into corporate America is one of activism, not capitalism. They're afraid of them. They're less afraid of them now than they used to be. They were really afraid of them in 2020 when everybody was getting canceled like crazy if you didn't post a black square on Instagram. They're less afraid of them now. They've seen the impact, right? We've seen the Bud Light impact. Nobody wants to be Bud Lighted. That company still hasn't recovered from their kind of Dylan Mulvaney foray. Target has been deeply criticized for their Pride Month product displays. While they still have some Pride, they've pulled way, way back. It's not featured in the store in the same way. It's kind of more back to kind of rainbows celebration and not as weird as, tuck-it bathing suits. So everybody's kind of pulling back a little bit. But at the end of the day, these companies are here to make money. And I will tell you, the executives, they value their bonus more than, being applauded for their DEI initiatives.
They love their yachts a lot.
They do. And if they can have both, great. Like if they can be, claps and snaps from their woke children for taking these, woke stances, they like that, but they don't like it more than the money, right? If they have to choose, they're going to choose the money. And that's not to say they're going to kind of pull back and then go the other way. They're just going to be neutral, and they're going to talk about the product, and they're going to talk about, which is what they should do. They should talk about the product. But we're not there yet. I mean, a lot of companies are still taking these strong kind of wokey stances, but I do think we've seen tremendous pullback since 2020. That was kind of the height of it with the BLM black squares stuff that we saw happening. Anyway, I think money is what matters in the end to these folks. They're capitalists. That's the heart of it.
I think there were some devious groups out there that were funneling tremendous amounts of funds based on DEI and ESG quotas that were being placed on these corporations that then had impacts on their compensation.
It's true, but these were fake quotas. So they were being hamstrung kind of mafia style by these organizations like HRC that are saying, like, if you don't do this, if you don't hit these quotas, if you don't make your ads about this, if you don't hit these things and get 100 points on our scale, we're going to say you're a terrible place to work, you're anti-gay and you're anti-trans, and no one's ever going to want to work there, and no one's going to buy your stuff. That's what was happening. And most companies believed it. They were afraid of that bad PR. Now they realize it's not really true. If they don't hit all the points, nothing's going to happen. They want to focus on the business. They don't want to focus on all this other garbage. It's a distraction. And so I think we'll get there slowly but surely. But you do have activists inside these organizations who continue to push for it. So there's a tension.
So long as this is a part of Pride Month, folks, I would believe that Pride Month is going to be in severe decline. We'll see how long this holds. But there's one thing you need to know, and that is you can get over to Jennifer Say's X account right now and subscribe. And folks, you'll have a great time at Jennifer Say. That's SEY on Jennifer Say. And Jennifer, could you tell the folks out there how else can they support you and your causes?
Go to xx-xyathletics.com or The Truth Fits. That's our vanity URL, thetruthfits.com. And, support the brand. Don't buy brands that don't support women and girls. We've got amazing, very premium workout gear, training gear, casual product, t-shirt, hats, everything. Switch to us, buy our product.
Wow, I love The Truth Fits. That is, whoever came up with that, that is genius. I love it. All right, Jennifer, thank you for being here today. It's been a pleasure, and we hope we can have you back again sometime to talk about more as this goes forward, especially the ramifications for women's sports in entertainment, ratings, and all that sort of thing. We'd love to hear your thoughts as society continues figuring this thing out.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Talk to you very soon, we hope. Well, it's been a good time. It's been a great time, folks. It's been a groovy time, even. Keeping the Holly Weirds in line. We know them better than they know themselves. As we say goodbye, folks, please consider clicking that like button, drop a comment down below, and join the community dialogue today. And until the next time, we say it every time. Keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.